When you don't have rhythm in your life, you don't just get tired. You get disconnected, you get exhausted, you get numb, you feel rejected, and you get misaligned. And those things start to perpetuate over and over and over inside of your body. And so the body doesn't break down because it's weak. It breaks because it's never allowed to rest. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Onyx Show. I'm your host, Justin Rothling-Schofer, and if you're new here, I want to welcome you. It is a great place to start your day. It's a great place to finish your day. It's a great place to be when you're working out, walking, or just wanting some type of powerful content that's going to help make your life better. And today, I'm just so excited because this podcast today was something that came to me while I was actually in New York City with my wife. Once every single quarter, my wife and I take a weekend and we do a 3-day or even a 2-day connection time together. And very intentionally, very purposeful. That first part of that trip, whether it's 3 days or 2 days, but that first day is always spent connecting on how are we doing together as a couple? How is our marriage? How are we serving one another? And then how are we within the business? And then the second day, and if we do a third day, but the last 2 days are always fun, just focused on nothing but pure fun, enjoying one another. And this rhythm that we have established is something that protects not only our mental capacity as individuals, but also our capacity and our connection as a couple, and make sure that we're really, really close. And you've heard me talk about this before, that when intentional rhythms are paired with consistent habits done over the course of time, inevitable outcomes are the result. And so when we think about wanting something, we think about wanting a greater degree of peace in our life, a greater degree of connection with our spouse, a greater fitness level, deeper sleeps. This is the thing that we are often missing, is that we're just not intentional enough. We are not consistent enough, and thus we get inevitable outcomes in the opposite direction. And so it was kind of funny because you wouldn't think that you'd find peace and freedom in a city that promotes chaos and objectivity. But that's exactly what we found when we went to New York City. That's exactly what we did because we led with intention. And so what I'm realizing now more than ever is that health is not primarily about discipline. It's not even frankly about willpower or effort, but rather health is about rhythm. The rhythm of your nervous system, the rhythm of your environment, the rhythm of your mind, the rhythm of your spirit. And how we get into that rhythm matters. The intention of how we get into that rhythm matters. And it determines whether we find health or whether we don't, whether we chase it or whether we receive it. And most people I meet today, especially high performers, leaders, builders, creators, pastors, they're not unhealthy because they're lazy. They're unhealthy because they've lost their rhythm. And so today, really what we're diving into is how do we establish a new rhythm? How do we get into this new rhythm? How do we find this new rhythm? And a lot of you might be in this situation where you feel just so chaotic, literally in your heart. You know that there's something more for you, but there's this low level or low grade anxiety that's like constantly buzzing. There's this feeling of uneasiness in your life the majority of the time. Sometimes I would describe it as almost like there's like bugs crawling underneath my skin. It's like very unsettling. And when we think about this, we have to come back to the truth where we live in a world without rhythm. Because we live in a world that has no natural cadence anymore, everything is noise, everything is stimulation, everything is urgency. Because there's no off button, there's no pause button. There's no, hey, let's slow this thing down button. No pause, no exhale, no anything. And when I was in New York, I felt this in a deep way. Because if you've ever been to New York City, you know that New York doesn't whisper at you. It pulls on you. It demands from you. It keeps you on all the time. The lights, the sounds, the notifications, the people, the pressure, the running, the honking of the horns. It's like nonstop. And what I realized when Elise and I went there and we were standing in the middle of this, we had just finished going to a Broadway play. We went to The Outsiders, if anybody was interested, and it was amazing. But we had just come out of We'd just come out of The Outsiders, and we were standing right down in Times Square. Times Square during the holiday season, a crazy, crazy place. But what I realized standing in the middle of all of that was this, is that when you live without rhythm, you don't just get tired. And everybody, I need you to hold on to this. I need you to take this message in. When we were standing in the middle of this and we saw all of this, when you don't have rhythm in your life, you don't just get tired. You get disconnected, you get exhausted, you get numb, you feel rejected, and you get misaligned. And those things start to perpetuate over and over and over inside of your body. And so the body doesn't break down because it's weak. It breaks because it's never allowed to rest. And leading up to New York, I had been on the road for 41 of 52 days. I had been traveling and serving people all over in different capacities. Our entire team here at our home that we had hosted. Then we had our leadership team where we were going deep diving into a lot of really important topics for 2026. And then we hosted 50 of our clients here for Optimization Day. And I think if I'm like reflecting on this, there was maybe 4 or 5 days over the course of those last 51 that I was just able to chill at my home and just relax and just kind of be. And funny enough, when I was going to New York and we had said, hey, we're going to New York, we're going to do our quarterly, and I saw this coming up, I felt so excited because I knew that as soon as I got on that plane, everything that had to do with own it, everything that had to do with serving, everything that had to do with pouring out was done. It was going to pause for a little bit. 48 hours. And that was freeing, even though we were going to one of the most chaotic, one of the most crazy cities. And the feeling of relaxation, the feeling of down regulation that I got when I got into that plane was magical. And so for so many of you, you feel like your body is broken. You feel like these things are just popping up out of nowhere. But this is important. So I want to say this clearly, is that your health doesn't fall apart because your body's fragile. It falls apart because you're out of rhythm. Your rhythm is broken. You actually don't have a rhythm anymore. Your rhythm is chaos. There's the tornadoes that are constantly coming up in your day, and that's just what you step into. Your kids need something, so you tend to it. Your spouse needs something, so you tend to it. The business needs something, so you tend to it. Your employees need something, so you tend to it. Your client needs something that's unhappy, so you tend to it. And you're constantly tending, but yet you're never pouring back in. There's never a pause. There's never a step away. And when stress never resolves, when stimulation never shuts off, when output never gives way to recovery, your nervous system stays locked in that survival mode. And that survival mode is what continues to break down your nervous system. It's chronic stress, guys, chronic stress. That's continually the epidemic or pandemic that is changing the way in which we operate in our world. And with the creation of new technologies, with the evolution of this AI, there's only ever going to be more of this. And so if we don't learn how to build rhythm, if we don't learn how to come back to rhythm, we will continue to be stuck and be broken. And so survival mode can be okay for a moment. Okay, it can be okay for a moment. I know that there's like you just had a baby and there's first month. Yeah, you know what? We're in survival mode a little bit, but we're going to figure it out and we're going to slowly work our way towards a better rhythm. Maybe we get to feel what it feels like to have a relative living with us or a family member living with us or a nanny that we're having put in place. Or maybe it's, hey, the business is evolving and it's changing. Okay, yeah, you know, for a few weeks, we're getting a new CEO in place or a new COO in place or a new team member in place. Those are all things that are seasonal, where chaos happens positionally or momentarily. But what happens is the season becomes a lifestyle. And the season is what we end up having as normal. And when that occurs, it ultimately destroys us when we live there. And most people don't realize it because dysfunction has become so familiar. We stay in that constant stimulation and call it normal. We stay in the exhaustion and call it discipline. We stay in survival mode and call it grit, but it's actually self-harm. And so I want to go back to my story here because the moment that I knew it was there, the moment I got on that plane, it's like everything stopped, paused, and I came back alive again. Now, it would have been very easy for me, even in that moment, had we not put New York on the calendar, to continue to keep going. And quite frankly, take that chaos right through the next, it was coming for call it 51 days, it could have been easy to take it through the next 51 days. It would have been very easy for me because we were making money, we were creating, we were building, we were taking ground, we were serving people at such a high level. There's a high that comes with serving people, which is why it can become addictive, which is why it can become dangerous. And so when I started to step away and I put this on the calendar, when I started honoring seasons of pushing and seasons of pausing, when I started to honor moments of creating and moments of quiet, when I started to honor moments of overreaching, but then also moments of restoring. Get this, my capacity didn't shrink like a lot of you fear. My capacity actually grew. Suddenly I became a husband that was intentional and patient. Suddenly I became a husband that was deeply connected again. Suddenly I became a business owner that has my focus resharpened. I became a creative that had my creativity deepened. My tolerance expanded. My spirit felt anchored again. And this is the paradox that most people miss, is that rest doesn't make you weaker. Rhythm actually makes you stronger. It builds a greater design for you. And the funny thing is that this is how we were designed. God designed us this way. God designed us for rhythm. The very first things that he did was create morning and night. He created light and darkness. He created land and water. There's rhythms to everything. He created seasons. Like the natural creation and what we're made for is rhythm. But when we think about this, we completely forget it because God designed our human system just as he designed the system that we live in, where there's stress and then there's recovery. There's exertion and then there's rest. There's output and then there's stillness. And when we think about this, we often forget it. And so I want to challenge you a little bit here because there's going to be some discomfort as you step into this. I think a lot of people are more than happy to put their hand up and say, I want more rhythm in my life. I want to feel this level of peace and freedom. I want to feel more energetic. I want what's on the other side. I want what's there. But there's this level of discomfort that we have to get through because most people never step out of chaos long enough to realize that they've lost rhythm. When we were starting the business, Elise was so good at just doing and doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. And she actually burnt herself out as we were building Own It. But she was so in tune with her body that she knew it and realized it and did something about it. And about 2 years ago, her goal was to create a 20-hour work week. And I'll never forget when she came up to me and told me, hey, Justin, I'm going to build myself a 20 to 25-hour work week. That's my goal. I was, quite honestly, I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, you run our business. You are what makes it tick. How are we going to function on a 20 to 25-hour work week? And how are we going to grow to the depth in which we need? And that didn't mean that she only worked 20 to 25 hours. It means that she had all of this now white space to be able to go create things that like allowed her to be the best CEO that she was. But all I'm thinking is, oh my gosh, 20 to 25-hour work week, that's how are we going to actually grow? And as she embodied that, as she designed that, as she intentionally put boundaries up, her capacity completely shifted. And when I say capacity shifted, it's not that she was all of a sudden able to do more, but her productivity increased. Her ability to think clearly increased. Her ability to actually go produce increased. Her ability to actually go and make sure that she was functioning at a high level and be the leader that she was called to be increased. And her taking that step, that boundary, was wild. And when she steps back into a 60, 70, 80-hour work week that's chaotic, she feels it immediately. And a lot of people would say, oh my gosh, I've lost my edge. Oh my gosh, I'm getting weaker. Oh my gosh, I'm falling behind. But listen to me, you haven't gotten worse. What's happening is you've actually become more aware. You've become aware as to the erratic and chaotic rhythms that you've put on yourself. And all of a sudden, it's not that you've gotten worse. It's actually that you've gotten better. Because when you notice that things start to happen for a long period of time, you have to have that pattern interrupt. And so many people fear getting into this place. They fear that they're like, my gosh, I'm not going to be able to handle what it is that's coming my way. But in fact, you're able to handle it more. And Elise's productivity went up. Elise's ability to communicate went up. Elise's ability to actually be the leader that other people could follow went up. And quite frankly, we've tried to get our entire team there. And what we've noticed is that now our team serves our clients better. We serve at a higher level. We serve at a more elite level. And we're actually living what we preach. And so when I come back to this, what I want to ask you is I want you to look at your calendar right now, and I want you to ask yourself, what rhythms have I put in place to maximize my output? What rhythms have I put in place to make sure that I can serve at the level necessary? Elise and I's rhythms look exactly like this. We make sure we do a 10-day trip every single year, bucket list trip, where we go completely dark to the business and we allow our team to run the business for 10 days. We don't connect, we don't do anything. The only thing we say is if there's an absolute code red emergency, contact us. And that's never happened over the course of 4 years. The next thing we do is every quarter, we have a 2 to 3 day connection trip put on the calendar. That might be local here in Miami. It might be going somewhere. But again, we make sure that that is on the calendar. Then every single month, we do a spontaneous day. I create a spontaneous day for her, and she creates a spontaneous day for me. And we alternate months. So on month 1, I might say, hey, Elise, Saturday afternoon, I want you to block it. And there's going to be something on the bed, and I want you to put it on. And it's this beautiful little dress that I take her out for dinner in. And that's spontaneous day. And then weekly, we make sure we have a date night that sits on the calendar that's non-negotiable. This is just a rhythm that we have so that we can make sure that our marriage is looked after in and amongst how we serve everybody. Then I have my own rhythms. I have my morning rhythm where I get up and I get my quiet time in, I get my workout in, and then I serve all day. And then I have a nighttime rhythm. How do I reacclimate, coming back in, going from founder to husband, being able to be present at night, allowing myself to downregulate so I sleep deeply. And so these rhythms have to be interjected into your life if you want the capacity to step into what God's called you to do. And so when we think about this, this is what my takeaway for you is today is I want you to take a look at what are your rhythms? What are your current rhythms? Do you feel like you have the symptoms that I talked about very early on, where it's chaotic, it's crazy, there's a lot going on, it's unsettling? Or do you feel like you are rooted deeply, that you're like, no, I've got all the things I need, I'm doing really great? Or a third, are you saying you're doing really great, but it's a lie because you've just been living in it and you haven't realized where your capacity falls? I like to give the example of if you've ever been somebody who's been like a wine a night person or a cocktail a night person or even a few cocktails a week person, and then you cut drinking out, and then all of a sudden you go back and you have a couple cocktails and you're like, my gosh, why did these put me on the floor? I feel like I can't wake up first thing in the morning. Why is this all happening? My tolerance has gone down. No, it's not your tolerance has gone down. What's happened is that you realized how dysfunctional your habits were before and how dysfunctional your living was before. And so that's my encouragement for you is go look at your rhythms. Where are you currently at? Have you been pouring out and going and going and going and going, and that it's kind of lost? You've lost your luster. You've lost your ability to go and pour out and do at the level in which you need. And if that's the case, what do you need to step into? And what rhythm do you need to put in place so you can increase your capacity, increase your productivity, and ultimately step into the leader God made you? Because we know that the way of the world is actually not where we need to go. And we need to be paradoxical to what we do every single day because we know success is different. So own your different. I'll see you guys next week.